Top 15 highest paid rugby players in the world. This has come from Wales Online, and Rugby Pass have also kind of partially picked it up as well. They've made a list of the top 15 highest paid rugby players in the world with a note at the start saying that basically with the top league being called off, a bunch of high paid guys in Japan, like some Matt Giddo, Dan Carter, Brody Retallick and whatnot, they're probably not getting their pay. So going into when rugby returns, they've compiled a list of the top 15 guys. I should say that much of the wording, and I'll link the articles down below, but much of the wording for these, because rugby contracts are generally not made publicly visible, reportedly this and supposedly that kind of thing, so we'll go with what it is. I'm assuming they've got good sources. But anyway, 15th top paid rugby player in the world, Faf de Klerk at Sale Sharks, on a reported £500,000 a year, which would be 11 million rand compared to what he was getting when he was in South Africa at the Lions. I'm sure it's a significant pay increase. It's one of the reasons we see a lot of the guys leave Super Rugby to go north from not just South Africa but Australia, New Zealand as well. Apparently he signed a contract extension in 2018. You can only imagine if he'd signed it after the World Cup, it probably would have been even more. So they were maybe fortunate to lock him in at that rate, given that, you know, he was a key cog in that South African machine at the World Cup last year. 14th spot, Beauden Barrett. So at the Blues, and I believe he is one of only a couple of players who are actually still in Super Rugby that make this list. Beauden Barrett plays for the Blues and the All Blacks, so his contract, I know more about the New Zealand system just because that's where I'm from. He will be getting part of his wages, salary, whatever it is, megabucks from New Zealand Rugby's, like for his All Black side and partly from his Blues side. So it'll be a bit of both. £520,000 per year, or about 1 million New Zealand dollars a year, 4-year deal. What they didn't mention, but what I know about his contract is he has a couple of sabbaticals written into his contract. So like the start of this Super Rugby season, he did not play. He was due to play probably around about now. But yeah, and he's got one more that he can take. So he's got one more time that he can basically take half a season off. So if you're looking at his pay rate per game, it's probably a bit higher, just because he gets a bit of free paid time off as part of his deal. Next, 13th is Finn Russell on a reported £535,000, so around 611,000 euros. Apparently that's about double what he was getting when he was at Glasgow. So again, it's hard to blame a guy when you're getting double the coin. I'm not sure how it works when he's playing for Scotland, but he's not been playing for Scotland, so I guess at the moment he's just living off his wages from Racing 92. In at 12th is Johnny Sexton on a reported £536,000, so about 612,000 euro. He is Ireland's top paid player. It kind of makes sense. He was World Player of the Year, captain of Ireland, top club at Leinster, so it kind of makes sense that he is one of the top earners in Ireland, or the top earner. 10th, there's actually two. There's no 11th because you got two guys in at 10. You got 10th equal. One of them is Stuart Hogg. The other one is Manu Tuilangi. So Hogg is on £550,000 apparently. Apparently he was the highest paid player in Scotland even before he left to join Exeter. But when he joined Exeter, he topped up by at least £200,000 a year. So bit of a decent pay rise for him. And for Tuilangi on the same rate, apparently the deal that he signed last year, which I think is a pretty good deal for him, because he was in and out with injuries for a long time, but he increased his previous deal by 25%, so not a bad one. In at 9th is Aussie captain Michael Hooper, And his will be a similar deal. He's the only other Super Rugby guy on this list. His will be a similar deal that he's getting part of his wages from Aussie Rugby and part of it from the Waratahs. 5-year deal, which he penned in 2018, worth £572,000 a year, or 1.1 million Aussie dollars per year. Well, he won't be getting that now because I know they've been taking pay cuts. A lot of these guys are probably in that same boat. But either way, regular salary. One thing I didn't really like about that deal, because it's so much more than all the other guys are getting paid, is it essentially locks him in as captain. So even if Dave Rennie comes in as Wallabies coach and wants to appoint someone else as captain, you're kind of stuck because you got this guy getting paid mega bucks. I mean, you could leave him on the sideline, but it would seem a bit of a weird one. But I guess you keep a guy in Aussie Rugby through his prime. So Michael Hooper is there at 9. Again, there's no 8 because we've got 2 guys at 7 on the same pay. Morgan Parra from Clermont and Nico Sanchez from Stade Francais, both on £580,000. So for Parra, that's about €662,000. He's not been playing internationally. I don't know how France works it in terms of topping up their player salaries, but if that's just his club salary, kind of like Finn Russell at the minute, it's a pretty good return. For Nico Sanchez, that's 47.5 million Argentinian pesos. So, yep, it's a fair bit of coin. Would have been a big pay rise over what he was on at the Juarez with Stade Francais, and that'd make him Argentina's #1 paid player pretty easily. So, I think Parra must be France's #1 paid player because there's no Frenchman above him. Interesting, seeing as he's not even in the squad for the international team. Number 6 is the #1 paid Welsh player. It's Dan Biggar. He's on £600,000 a year, reportedly. A bit of a rise from what he was on at Ospreys, apparently, but they didn't report what he was paid on there. Obviously with Northampton now since 2018. And the article mentioned that it's a fair point that of all these guys on big salaries, he's actually been pretty consistent from what I've seen in terms of performance levels, not getting injured. Like Bowden hasn't been playing for the Blues yet with his contract. Finn Russell hasn't been playing for Scotland, but I guess he's been playing pretty well for Racing. Johnny Sexton's had injuries. So he's been a pretty consistent guy in there for Northampton. So, more power to him. 5th is Stephen Luatua, former Blues man. He's with Bristol, £650,000 a year, which makes it about 1.3 million New Zealand dollars. He was kind of a fringe All Black when he was over here. Decided to go to the Northern Hemisphere and take the coin. And given that he is, a couple of $100,000 New Zealand dollars more than the top paid New Zealand player in Bowden Barrett, it's kind of hard to blame him. He doesn't have to play in the international games. He may want to, but potentially fewer games, although Bodie's got the sabbatical. So either way, he left that fringe All Black career and is making some pretty good coin at Bristol. Number 4 is Owen Farrell on a reported £750,000. Pretty big coin, but the Saracens guys, obviously, with the salary cap breaches, are being kind of under the pump. What remains of their salaries, whether they get their salaries going forward. It seems like a lot of the big guns are going to stick around. Some of them may leave to play in the kind of second division or in the championship, but we will see. But either way, 750k is a bit of a big jump. 3 is another Saracens man, Amaro Toje. His one just says it's between 750k to £1 million a year, so they don't actually know the exact number. Apparently he is confirmed to stay with Saracens for next year when they're playing in the championship, so there'll still be reason to get along to those Saracens games. So that's from 15 to 3. There is no 2 because there are 2 guys equally there at number 1. One of them is Charles Piutau on a reported £1 million a year, which is a 2 million New Zealand dollars, which is the calculations that Rugby Pass has done on their article. So I'm not sure what the current exchange rate is like, but I guess that's an approximate thing. He's an interesting one, Piutau, because he left New Zealand Rugby pretty early. He's always talked about wanting to kind of do the right thing for his family, so that's why he he went to take the coin, and being number one paid rugby player in the world, can't really complain too much about that. Some circles he's seen a bit of a mercenary because he played for Wasps, played for Ulster, played for Bristol. But other people would just say, and like I think he has said, like a rugby player's career is pretty limited in terms of the time you get, so you might as well make the most of it while you are there. So he is first equal alongside Andre Pollard, World Cup winning Springboks 10. At Montpellier, he's on the same amount, reportedly £1 million a year, so 23.5 million rand. The article reports that it was triple his salary at the Bulls when he was playing in Super Rugby. So, yeah, interesting that you've got a couple of guys playing in Super Rugby. They've managed to, with that kind of national team top up, to get these guys towards the top 15. But then you've also got some guys who only play for their clubs, like Piuto and Luatua, obviously not eligible for New Zealand anymore. Other guys who are able to go back and play for their clubs, like Pollard, or the national side, Pollard Sanchez, and whatnot. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting look. Like I said, you should go check out the articles. Wales Online initially sourced the figures. Rugby Pass did a bit with the conversions of the currencies. But yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. You guys let me know your thoughts. How do you think these guys translate in terms of their performances on the field to the value that they're getting paid in their contracts? I hope you're all safe and well, because yeah, it's a bit of a crazy time. I'm sure, like I mentioned, some of these guys will be on reduced wages like much of the world is at the moment, but either way, I thought it was a pretty interesting story. And yeah, you guys take care. Talk to you again soon. See you later.